Good morning. Welcome. My name is Virginia, and I want to welcome all of you who are in our audience in our hybrid meeting today, and also to welcome those who are on Zoom. And we would ask that if you're coming in by Zoom, that you come in muting yourself. Later on, after the speaker has had his turn, you'll have your turn to make comments or ask questions. So, to get on the way, I want to say that our affirmation is, there is only one power, one presence in the universe, God the good, all power, ever present, all knowing, and we are one. And our vision statement, we are a spiritual community with a passion to share love, faith, and hope. And the mission statement for our church, we are an accepting, loving, and faith-filled spiritual community that honors all paths to God. And at this time, it's time for our announcements. And so I'll share the screen.
I just wanted to announce that Sandra will be moving to a rehab care facility very soon. And she is on Facebook. Her daughter has controls of the Facebook, so if you want to send her a message or contact her by Facebook. Thank you.
Our speaker today for our mini lesson, and that is going to be Luann Champion. And so,
Well, we're wrapping up the month of the 12 powers. This month is wisdom. And so I thought I would go back to the life of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. The word knowledge, you get a piece of data that you know, and the root word ledge is to put it into action. So that night when she went to the church service and she came out and she knew that she had a connection with the divine, her image was in the image of God, where all things were possible, and she, as a child of God, could not inherit sickness in her body. She took that knowledge, put it into action day after day after day, and that became wisdom. It became true that she was able to heal herself. Her husband, Charles, who was a businessman, he was very enthusiastic, passionate. He supported her and began to follow her pathway through prayer and meditation daily. That's where he came up with the 12 powers of man. Through the wisdom that he lived and Myrtle lived throughout their life, evidence of the truth of their own healing, that they birthed a whole bank of thought that became our unity of today. So in our life, where does wisdom come from? It comes from the power within. And our greatest wisdom, it comes from in the silence. That is our ever-present sense of strength, that we know that we are connected with the divine. So as we continue on, that's the wrap up for this month. And next month, we'll be talking about love.
and now, as we receive David's gift of his talent of music, and we give our kind and loving attention, as giving and receiving are one. you are sharing your, and we thank all of you for sharing your gifts, whether they're a monetary gift or your gifts of kindness and loving attention, or just sharing your joy. All of these things enhance all of us. Shall we say together the blessing of our tithes and offerings? Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God.
Thank you, God.
And now, before Dave goes into his musical rendition of the Lord's Prayer, I'd like to introduce Reverend Clarence Sheufelt, who is our speaker today, and I hope I didn't mispronounce it too badly. Clarence is a minister in the Universal Life Church, and he's also a Reiki master and reflexologist, and is currently studying in the American Institute of Holistic Therapy. So Reverend Sheufelt will be leading us in a meditation as well as his talk today entitled Release, Letting Go. And now,
I would like you to concentrate on the soft music and concentrate on clearing your mind and seeing the little ball of white light that's by the fountain that we're going to set by for this meditation. Clear your mind, open your mind, and rest. All is well. All is peaceful. The music soothes us and puts us in touch with our soul. Now that we're in a calm and peaceful area, let us rest for a few seconds, and then we'll come back up and begin the lesson. Begin to wake up, come back to us, and be refreshed and ready for the lesson. Thank you for going with us on the meditation. A little bit more on my background is I'm a recovering addict of 34 and a half years, and I'm drawing on that experience of walking that path for this talk today. Why is letting go important? What do we get from it? First, we're going to talk about the spiritual law of attraction, because that law of attraction is always with us, always playing. If you get a thought in your head, a good one or a bad one, it doesn't matter. If you stay with it for 17 seconds, it owns you. And that becomes a problem for things that take you down. If it takes you up, that's wonderful. If it keeps you at peace, that's cool. If you want to change that thought, that's a difficult avenue to go down. Naps work real well, and if you practice real hard on meditation, meditation works, but that takes effort to get to the point where you can turn that mind off. Your spiritual condition depends on it. We have to accept the world as it is. We can only change ourselves and now no one else. We can do our duty, but once we've done that, we have to accept the results of the community. You need to forgive to attract good. And forgiving is another whole issue. Right now, we'll just talk about letting go of certain things. Your intuition works from your spiritual center. To listen and follow requires that you be at peace with God, which means letting go so that you're not constantly going back in history and saying, gee, what did Charlie do? Or what did Marie do? Or what did someone do? All that stuff is ancient history. And the more you think on that, you go back to the first law, you pull those other things in. So you will attract what you don't like. Your physical health depends on it. When you get going on that and get aggravated, your endocrine system kicks in the fight or flight response, and you got no place to run. So you got tons of hormones running around your body causing all kinds of mess, disturbing the heart, disturbing the breathing, disturbing this system and that system, because your mind is saying, I'm in trouble. It doesn't matter how low it is or how high it is, those things are out there. Your growth and assistance, because if you're gnawing and chewing on something that's old, then you've got no place to go. Because that's where your mind is. You've got to clear your mind in order to let thoughts come in from your soul and from the other people helping you, your guardian angel and whoever else is on your team. I had a good example of that in one of the automotive companies I worked at. I was contracted in, so I had a contract boss and I had a supplier boss. And the contract boss wanted to do everything to please the supplier, the guy that we were getting our money from. It was a bit of he wanted to take planning down to 15-minute increments on a system that had thousands of parts. Now, we're just not there yet. And I got caught in the middle. And I had many tools to handle that, but I decided that I could handle that. Okay? The big I, the big nut. So I got caught between the two of them. And one day, 6 months later, it just was too much. And I blew up and acted badly. My partner got me out of the meeting and says, you go to your meeting. Remember I said I was recovering, and I'm recovering in AA. So I went to the tables and said what had happened. He says, well, you've got choice. You can find something good about him, or you can continue your path and end up either in jail, the insane asylum, or dead. You choose. You got 4 choices on the table. The last thing I wanted to do was to find something good about this guy. That's sort of like forgiving. I wanted to do other things, okay? But I didn't like the other 3 alternatives, Jail doesn't sound good. Going to an insane asylum doesn't sound good. And dying, I was too young for that crap. I wanted to live. I had more things to do. So I chose their alternative. Guess what? It took, I think, a day and a half. I come up with one item. We were in an old plant in Dearborn, and on the third floor, and it was hotter than heck, and it was summertime. He brought in a fan as a gesture. The minute I thought of that fan and was able to share it, things started to change. The following week, I was up to 5. You realize 5 things that he'd done good. To me, that was amazing considering where my mind was when I walked into that meeting a week back. It was amazing because all of a sudden they decided to move us out of the plant we were in to another one. I was leaving that boss behind because they wanted us closer to where we were doing the specific planning. So the thorn was removed in a sense. And then the week after that, second week, a lady I had helped get through a professional exam because I'm reasonably competent in mathematics, and she had her troubles. She said her husband had an opening in a place I'd always wanted to get to, but everybody kept saying, no, you can never transfer into that sacred ground and all this other happy stuff that they say. But it turns out it's who you know, if you're qualified. And I said, sure. So within 2 weeks after clearing my mind of the hate and the vengeance and the anger that was there, I was out of there in a new position and had new challenges. I had learned a lesson. Oh, okay. So, lessons allow us to look at these objectively. Now, those are some practical experiences. The list above and that last experience happened while I was still working in the program. You see, because what I could have done early on, I don't know what the results would have been. I could have started sharing that at the tables and got some other wisdom. But no, I had to go down that path to learn that lesson of letting go. And the program that I'm familiar with this AA was given to Bill W., one of the founders, by God. And it's a real simple, but really difficult program. It's going to be broken into 3 major segments: trust God, clean house, and help others. And the clean house is where we talk about letting go. And the first one, and you sort of got to do these in order because letting go requires, in my mind, tremendous assistance from the higher power, God, Jesus, whoever you believe in. Because I have no control over others. I have to accept that God's in charge, and I have to turn my will and my life over to His care and direction. That's a tall order, and not many folks look at it that way. But when you come from where we do, I know God's in charge because He's showed me many times who's the boss, and it ain't me. And then the clean house thing is whatever's bothering you. We have some areas that we cover, like anger and that sort of thing. But for the purpose of what we're talking here, anything that's bothering you, a good case in point would be my youngest daughter. Grandpa did something that ticked her off back 50 years ago, and she just got around to telling us about it. So don't hold these things in, because all they do is fester and get really nasty. So anything that's bothering you, however small, however large, remember, once you start running that around your mind for 17 seconds, it starts to own you, and then it'll own your body systems, and it just stays there. So we make a list of those and then share them. And then you start working the letting go process and talk to God about it. And then the help others, we firmly believe that in order to keep our sobriety, we must give it away. I cannot hoard this gift that God gave me. I have to go where He directs me. And He says, okay, if that's the only way I can keep my sobriety, whatever you want done, boss, we're off. So you review yourself daily when you get down to this point. You ask God for guidance. What do you want me to say today? What do you want me to do? You're going to put someone in my path that's going to need some help. How do I do that? And we pay it forward. Letting go is part of the housekeeping, and it's a very key part. And as I said in a minute ago, we'll go back through some of these areas. There are areas of your life that's troubling you, like you've got issues with your family or your behavior towards your parents, you just like a boss or a secretary, your kids, your partner, government. Last year's taught us a lot about accepting government. Health, whatever bugs you that these people are doing, put it down. Because the only way we're going to get rid of it is if we understand where that lesson's coming from. We got to look at, I feel, as a lesson. Because if I look at it any other way, it becomes too personal. And I need to be objective on this side of the thing. So that's what we do. And you review it. And you share them with another. Then you remember who's in charge, and only you can change you. So it's your review, not the other person's. I'm not looking at what the other person has done. That's going to be another issue that we get around to talk about forgiveness. But right now, let's just talk about us. So we review these items. We accept the fact that we've discovered a lot of things about ourselves that we didn't know. And probably some of them we don't like because we discovered some things in the closet. Now we got to own them. And that's why I like looking at a lesson. Have I learned this lesson? Or do I want to go back out there and do it again? Do I want to go through that mess I did with my contract boss of not sharing so that I didn't and blow up and all that thing? Gee, I could have let that go the first day and started a different path. I think maybe next time I'll look at it differently. So you got to go through that process. Remember, accepting what you've learned is key. And you have to make a decision. This is where the letting go comes about. And one of the key things when you let go is beware of self-judgment. It is key and very critical to let go of self-judgment. Defer instead to the mercy of God rather than your warped sense of condemning self. Don't get yourself involved because it's always going to play you down. Turn to Father and say, Father, I've screwed up. I need your help. Forgive me. Ask for his mercy. Now, are you ready to let go of all these lessons? What of these lessons have been beneficial? And you're ready to move on? Or do you still need to learn something more about them? That's where turning this over to God comes in about. Yes, I want to turn that over to God because I can't handle it. And then the second phase of letting go is, Father, take those away. Now, he's not going to strip you of everything. He's going to keep you where your talents are. So you don't have to fear that all of a sudden you're going to become a brain surgeon or whatever, like I did. Gee, I didn't really want to let go of this one. This has been with me forever. And the real hard ones are the ones that come with us from early on that we may need professional help with, in the childhood. Because those are hard to get rid of. The easy ones are the ones we've done where we're conscious of it now. If I got drunk and smashed a car, I can handle that one. What happened to me when I was 6 or 7 or 5 or 3 that set me on a path against something? And in my case, it was a certain part of the medical community that abused my mother. And that's been a hard one to let go. And working with a couple therapists, I picked up too damn much of it. It wasn't my mission, but no one was helping her, so I wanted to jump in there as a child. Hey, 5-year-old can't do much other than carry a misbelief forever. And that had to go because, as you pointed out, I'm a Reiki master and reflexologist, and you can't do a good healing job if you got that thing running around your mind, okay? So when you're strong enough, the boss will put in your head, God will say, okay, it's time for you to get at this. You'll come to some realization, only if you've been letting go. Because you got to be able to hear the intuition. Okay. And a good example of that, my stepdaughter was a year sober. Louder? Okay. Was a year sober. And she had been distancing herself. She was with an abusive husband because he kept moving her farther and farther and farther away from her family and civilization. That's a classic sign. We knew it, but we didn't know it was as bad as it was. So on one night, we had one of the children, one of the grandsons with us, and around supper time, the son-in-law popped up and says, gee, something come up, would you take the other one? So, okay. So when my stepdaughter got off of work, her boss says, Patty, do not go home. Stay with me. I got a bad feeling about today. She says, nah, one of the kids are home, nothing can happen to me. Okay. She stopped off someplace and talked to another one, and she got the same message. Patty, don't go home. And she had to stop and pick up some eggs at a friend's house down about 4 miles from where they live. And that lady said the same thing. Sometime during the night, she met her demise, and then he took his own life. Point is, she wasn't open to the messages that Father gave her. Remember, Jesus said to Peter that night, you will deny me thrice before the cock crows. I'm saying, whoops, 3 times. Now, this came to light much later when we were piecing things together, but that really struck home to me that, hey, I got to be in a position to where I can hear Father's guidance. He was clear. I didn't want you to go home. She couldn't hear it. She thought she was safe because she was in charge. Well, she couldn't stop a 9mm bullet with her hand, which she tried. But, so this letting go and getting ourselves to the point where we can hear what Father's saying to us is very, very critical. I'm not trying to frighten anybody, but that's the way it is. If you're ready to let this go, then ask Father, take these away. And trust Him. He's got your best interests at heart. Whatever you signed up with before you came down here, He wants you to continue. So, and then the next thing we do in the program, and I'd recommend it for you folks, is we make a list of all that stuff we've done and decides what kind of amends we're going to make to the people that we've had in our minds and whatever actions we've taken because of that. And amends really means, don't say I'm sorry. Demonstrate by changing your things. Amend your ways, and everything will get better over time. And that's a hard course of action. There's nothing easy about what we're talking about here. And with that, we come back and remember why it's important. The law of attraction is in play. If you want to attract good things in your life, then you got to clear your mind of the stuff that you need to let go of, it's not serving you. And that keeps your spiritual condition in good form. And by staying calm and peaceful, your mind isn't arguing with yourself so that you don't have the fight or flight response, and your endocrine system is behaving itself because it's just looking out for your good. You tell it to go do this because you're upset. It does that. You don't really need it doing that today. And it helps with growth because now you can listen to what Father's saying. And that's really key. So that ends the listening. Thank you very much.
And time to contribute. And those in our audience here have comments or things you'd like to share.
Hi, Clarence. Nice to meet you. Hopefully someday we'll meet face to face. Thank you. That you're so right as far as letting go, and it's like you sometimes don't want to, and it is a real effort and concentration. I appreciate you sharing. And it definitely, I'm going to make a list. In fact, I make lists. The trouble was I have a lot of them spread around because I don't want to let go of them, I guess. So uh, I'll have to be more diligent about keeping one main list. Thank you so much.
As if there was some kind of energy that you were holding in that resentment, and that really spoke to me because that resentment does gnaw, and it gnaws on your body. It will hurt your body, and the opening is to let that is the opening of God is to let go and let God. And what is God? Well, it's the energy of acceptance. It's the energy of love. It's the energy of seeing the beauty of everything, even in someone who is you appear to be hurtful to you, and that is the spiritual stretch. And I also relate to the childhood stuff because there are some appearances of hurtfulness in my own childhood that if I look at it with these eyes, with my physical eyes, it has gnawed, it has hurt my body, eaten my body in some ways. But from God's perspective, it's all perfect because everything is moving towards love in some ways. Everything is moving towards our greater self, our greater purpose, and every lesson has a silver lining that can turn us towards love, as your lesson has so well demonstrated. To let go of a power greater than yourself and be open to that. And that power is not forcing. It will never force. But my ego and my hatred and my resentment is louder and has a forcing quality. But this softer quality will not force. So I have to stretch to come down to it so I can listen to it. I have to be more like the feather in the air so I can feel its whisper and its push and its little breeze that's nudging me into a certain direction. And that is my spiritual journey, is to come to that level so that I can listen, well, not only to God, but it's to who I really am too. So I'll pass with that. Thank you.
Fight and flight mode, mostly the flight. And been struggling with what it's been doing to my body and my mind, and how to get in this process of letting go and listening to spirit is, I guess it just takes practice, doesn't it? Changing the thoughts. When they come, change the thoughts. Thank you.
Clarence, may I ask you a question? Uh, when you decided to go to AA meeting, were you, what was your spiritual religious knowledge before that? Did you start getting closer to God after you joined the program, or did you have some sort of before that? How did you get into where you are now?
Looking back at it, I was brought up Catholic and had an understanding of God and a disillusionment of some of the practitioners I had bumped into in that faith. So I was sort of lukewarm, but I knew there was a God. Uh, I was familiar with Jesus and the Blessed Mother, who's helped our family tremendously. Um, but I wasn't where I am today. God sort of put me down a cattle chute, if you will. I was in Washington, D.C., and I ran a marathon, and a lady dropped in alongside of me who wasn't part of the race, but always ran the first 15 miles. And we talked. She had a perfect 10-minute pace. And based on her discussion, I changed courses. I see the hand of God in that one. I ended up in Dayton, all by myself, working for a program management company, doing support work. And I had a psychotic episode. And one of the fellows there at on our team, who was part of our contract team, said, how would you like to feel better? And he sort of explained, he says, this group does this, this, and this, you know, they help others, and right now we're helping you. And he says, come to a meeting. I did, and they were happy, and they were doing wonderful things. And they said, I'd have to turn to God to get sober. And I said, oh, damn, I don't have a good relationship with God or with his minions that I'm used to. He says, that's all right, just keep your feet under the table. Well, I had no place to run, because I'd already given up suicide. I didn't like the psychotic episode I went through. So I stayed. 6 months later, we were going through the same discussion of letting go, steps 6 and 7. And between looking at it and deciding that some things weren't needed and some things needed changing, at the beginning of the meeting, the lady was carried in. At that point where we were shifting from the topics, she got up and walked out. And at that instant, I felt his presence. And that changed my path permanently. So I let go of what I had saw growing up, because it wasn't serving me. You know, I needed to be in the service of Father. And so that started a whole new course of action. I practice a different level of spirituality. Well, I'm actually practicing spirituality where I wasn't before that event. I helped put one of the world's best killing machines out in the field and felt bad about it and decided that it was time to change. That wasn't me. All these events have left up to where I'm at. And I can see his hand throughout the whole thing when I look back. I had never heard of Reiki. At one of my birthday parties, a good friend of mine sat down with a good friend of Gene's who just came back from Malta teaching. And the next thing I know, I get a call the next week saying, you got to go see this lady. And that started down another path. So, you know, it's interesting when you look back and say, okay, I don't know what next adventure he's got, but all of them have been good. Some of them have been difficult. But, you know, I wouldn't change any of them. We got through my stepdaughter's funeral and the change that brought on with the help of God and his people. Everybody, people here at this church, people from AA, people from other churches all pitched in. You know, we kept the kids in 50 miles away from us in school, so they didn't have that change. They had discipline, which they hadn't had because the parents were arguing amongst themselves. That whole thing worked out. They were in a safe spot, and I learned a lot. So, yes, I've changed immensely. From once I grew up, I had to let go of what I saw and understand that part of what I saw was Mother's own path, and I had to accept that was her path, not mine. And that took a lot of effort. This letting go stuff is, Father has to work with you. I have to remember to ask him, damn it, I need the strength to get through this stuff you just put in front of me, and I need help. You know, one of my favorite teachers is Carolyn Mays. And Carolyn has this tendency to talk rather straightforward to Father. And that scared the daylights out of me because I never learned that. And she'll tell him point blank, damn it, I need this right now to help. You got me in this mess, I want you to get me through this mess. No ifs, ands, or buts. You know, and it works. I'm finally getting enough courage after many years in the program. I can talk. You know, I was taught never to talk to God that way. Oh, you know, I got to tell him I'm sincere. Once you decide to work with him, your life is never dull, and it sure as hell isn't boring. So I hope that helps. It's been a tremendous adventure. If I hadn't followed his advice, I don't know where I'd be.
Letting go, I think, is such a big topic that it's kind of a lifelong project, I think, for myself, maybe others too. And I think it's many layered, like on the physical level, if our parents kept everything and never threw anything away and we grew up with clutter all over, it's a very ingrained habit. I notice when it's time to get rid of things, I have to go around to each object in the room and look at it. Am I really willing to throw this out? Maybe I'll need, like, I deal with electronics, so I have a lot of old stuff around that is for spare parts. Now, I've had this 20 years. Is there a chance I may need one part out of this in the next 5 years? So it goes back. So on mental level, I think that, and spiritual level, I think that if we grew up in a fundamentalist background, a fundamentalist church where you were absolutely going to hell directly if you didn't believe in their beliefs, as you try and get a higher consciousness now and say where we are right now, I suspect there's some of that old residue back there in the inner recesses of our mind that we haven't released yet. And now and then it comes up where we have a, gosh, this sounds good, but that sounds kind of dangerous to go there. And I mean, God is not up on the throne. I mean, He's within me, and I'm kind of responsible for a lot of stuff I say and do. So I'd say when a really tough one for me is I'm an action person. I want action. I make a definite plan for how I want the day to go. And I deal with the public a lot. When I'm trying to give an example, I'm trying to make a schedule. I have, say, 6 service calls all over, and I have to make them in a string so I don't go from A 50 miles back to B. I have to string them together. And then they're telling me, well, I can't do it at 9. Can you make it after 5 o'clock? So I find that resentment, I would define resentment as other people disrupting your flow, other people imposing on you, and it's kind of like I have a train track and other people throw a switch and I'm going into an unplanned siding with a dead stop. And I find that resentment is a really key one. And how do you get a handle on resentment? Especially when it comes up and you're in a Gurgis right now after 3 or 4 things, bang, bang, bang. And the 17 seconds has expired several minutes ago. So that's, to me, a real chore. And my question is, who came up with 17 seconds? Why not 15 and why not 20?
Well, let's put it this way. 17 seconds comes from the studies I've done with Abraham and Esther Hicks. She is the spokesperson for a group of spirits that go by the name of Abraham. And they have come up with that. And why 17? I don't know. But it seems to be the magic. If you can shut it off at 16 and a half, good. If it goes to 17 and a half, shit. But and I've been studying with them for several years now, listening to their tapes and whatnot, and it keeps coming back to that. You've got a short window, and there was one other teacher, I think it was Dennis Waitley, that pointed that out too, that you had a short period of time in which to back away from it. I don't know how they come up with the 17. That was theirs, and it seems to work. If I can shut it down now, that's the big thing. I got to remember to shut it down now. Because remember, we're in quantum physics time now since 1945, and no one really has talked about it or understanding it, because time has collapsed on us. And so we've got to do things quicker than we used to. So that may be where they got it, I don't know. But it seems to work. And that's where I picked it up on, and I've been running with it, and when I can do that, I'm okay. And otherwise, I got to go through the meditation and the nap, and yeah, it's not fun.
I guess I follow Abraham as well, and I have that in 12-step programs, a couple. But yes, I think the idea of the 17 seconds is as you practice, it's like anything in your life, as Luann was saying with the powers when she first started, it's the practice that teaches us, and then we get more and more faith in what's happening, and we start to really believe it, take it in our heart. And so we then, I don't know, I get to the point where I kind of laugh about 17 seconds. I think it was just an arbitrary number that just said, the quicker you can shut this down and realize you're not in control of everything, and that you are willing to ask for your higher power's help, and then you just listen for your higher power's help. And those messages came with your daughter-in-law. That don't go home, don't go home. Those messages come through, but if we're not open to them, it takes practice to open ourselves to it, to believe it, to have faith. And I wasn't raised in a faith, so I don't know if that's an advantage or not, but I'm here now. And I have, all my friends are one-time fundamentalists. So, anyway, I would like to say if there are no other questions, we've been having a wonderful discussion, so enjoyed your talk. And I'd like to close the service and have those Zooming at home mute themselves again so that we can sing or listen to David playing the peace song. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine.
Thank you.